Ravi walked slowly along the cracked sidewalk, pushing an old stroller that carried his little daughter Mira. The stroller squeaked with every step, and the wheels shook when they rolled over the rough concrete. Inside the seat, Mira hugged a worn stuffed toy. The toy was missing one button eye, but she held it as if it was her best friend. The air was cool and the sky was gray. Autumn leaves floated down from tall trees and landed near their feet. For weeks, Ravi and Mira had no proper place to stay. They slept inside a small car that Ravi had bought years ago when life was better. At night, the car became their bedroom. Ravi would wrap Mira in blankets, kiss her forehead, and tell her stories to help her forget the cold. He would stay awake most nights, watching her sleep, making sure she was safe. The pain in his chest was heavy. Life had not been kind to him. Years earlier, he had a happy home and a family. His wife Asha had been the bright light in his life, but illness took her away too soon. After she passed, Ravi was left alone with their daughter. He tried to stay strong for Mira, but his world had collapsed. He worked at small jobs, painting walls, carrying boxes, and cleaning shops. No matter how much he worked, the money was never enough. Rent grew higher every year. Groceries cost more. Bills arrived faster than he could pay. When his savings ended, the landlord asked them to leave. Ravi pleaded for more time, but rules were rules. The day they walked out of their small apartment carrying 2 bags and a box, Ravi felt like a failure. His only hope was to keep moving forward for Mira. One cold afternoon, while he searched for cheap rooms, Ravi stopped outside a small grocery store. A wooden board stood near the entrance, filled with colorful papers. Some papers offered babysitting, some offered car washing, and others offered rooms for rent. Most prices were far beyond what Ravi could afford. As he read, his tired eyes noticed a small white flyer pinned at the bottom. The words were written in simple black ink. Old house for sale. 15 needs repair. Contact town hall. Ravi rubbed his eyes. He thought maybe he had read it wrong. A house for $15 sounded impossible. He looked again. The words were still there. His heart began to beat faster. He carried Mira inside the store and asked the cashier if the flyer was real. The young woman behind the counter nodded and said, "Yes, the city wants someone to take the old house. It has been empty for years. People say it is falling apart." Nobody wanted it. Ravi could not stop thinking. He had only a little money left. Most of it was coins in his pocket. He counted while Mira played with her toy. Exactly $15 remained. It was all he had. But if the flyer was true, maybe they could finally have a roof over their heads. He went to town hall that same day. A kind clerk with glasses explained everything. The house had been abandoned for a long time. The roof leaked when it rained, the paint had peeled, and the floors were weak. People tried to fix it before but gave up. Finally, the city decided to sell it for almost nothing, just to get someone to live there and keep the property from falling apart more. Ravi listened carefully. His hands shook a little. He thought about the risk. What if the house was unsafe? What if he could not repair it? But then he looked at Mira, who was standing near the desk with her big eyes staring out the window at the birds. She deserved a chance to live in a home. Even if the house was broken, it was better than sleeping in a car. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the coins and folded notes and placed them on the desk. The clerk counted slowly and smiled. "You just bought yourself a house, sir. It may not look like much now, but it is yours." Ravi signed the papers with a trembling hand. The pen shook as he wrote his name, but inside his heart there was a small spark of hope. When they reached the house later that evening, the sun was already low in the sky. The house stood at the edge of a quiet street. It was small, with cracked walls and broken windows. The front door tilted slightly to one side. The yard was full of weeds, and the wooden fence leaned dangerously. Ravi pushed the door open. It creaked loudly as if complaining after years of silence. Dust floated in the air, shining in the last light of the sun. The floor tiles were chipped and cobwebs filled the corners. In the living room stood an old fireplace covered in soot. Ravi placed his bag down and lifted Mira into his arms. She looked around with wide eyes. "Papa, is this our house now?" she asked softly. "Yes, Mira," Ravi whispered. "This is our house." Her small face lit up with joy. She wriggled down from his arms and ran across the empty room, her footsteps echoing. She laughed and spun in circles, calling out, "Our house, our house." Ravi smiled, though tears blurred his eyes. For months he had carried the weight of failure, but tonight he felt a little lighter. The house was broken, but it belonged to them. That night they spread blankets on the floor in the cleanest corner of the living room. Ravi tucked Mira in, told her a story, and watched her fall asleep. The wind whistled through cracks in the walls, but at least they were not in the car. At least they had 4 walls and a roof, even if it leaked. As Ravi lay down beside her, he stared at the ceiling beams. He wondered how he would fix the roof, how he would earn enough to buy tools and paint. He did not know where to begin, but he promised himself he would not give up. While he closed his eyes, he did not know that beneath this broken little house was a secret, hidden for decades. The land carried more than dust and weeds. It held a treasure that could change everything. Soon, Ravi would discover it. Soon his life and Mira's life would never be the same again. The next morning, sunlight crept through the cracked windows of the little house. Dust sparkled in the air, and the sound of birds outside filled the silence. Ravi woke up stiff from sleeping on the hard floor, but when he saw Mira still sleeping peacefully under the blanket, his heart softened. For the first time in weeks, they had not been inside a cold car. They had a roof, however weak it was. Ravi stood and stretched. He looked around the room and sighed. The house needed more work than he thought. The paint had peeled completely. The ceiling had dark water stains. The kitchen smelled of damp wood. In one corner, a rat scurried away when he moved. But even with all the problems, Ravi whispered to himself, "It is ours. We can fix it." After washing their faces with bottled water, Ravi took Mira outside. The yard was wild with weeds taller than her. She laughed as she tried to chase a butterfly, her tiny feet moving through the grass. For a moment, Ravi forgot all his worries. Seeing her happy gave him strength. He decided to walk into town and ask around for small jobs. He needed money for tools, nails, and maybe some food. On the way, he stopped at a small bakery. The smell of fresh bread made Mira's stomach growl. Ravi bought the cheapest roll with the last coin he had. He broke it into 2 pieces, gave the bigger part to Mira, and kept the smaller piece for himself. At the hardware store, he met an older man named Imran, who noticed Ravi studying prices of hammers and wood. Imran asked, "You fixing a house?" Ravi nodded. "Yes, but I don't have much money. I just bought the old house at the edge of town. It needs work." Imran raised his eyebrows. "That place? People gave up on it long ago. The roof leaks, the pipes are broken, and the walls are weak. You will need more than a hammer." Ravi smiled faintly. "I know, but I have no choice. My daughter and I live there now. I will fix it slowly." Something in Ravi's voice touched Imran. He handed Ravi an old hammer from the discount bin. "Take this. It is not new, but it will help. Pay me later when you can." Ravi thanked him deeply. That small kindness filled his heart with hope again. Over the next week, Ravi worked on the house. He cleared the weeds in the yard, repaired the broken front door, and nailed wooden boards over shattered windows. Mira followed him around, pretending to help. She held small nails in her tiny hands and said proudly, "Papa, I am your helper." Inside, the walls told a story of neglect. Paint peeled in layers. Dust covered every shelf. The bathroom sink was rusted. Yet every day, Ravi cleaned one corner at a time. Every day, the house began to look a little more alive. One afternoon, while sweeping the basement, Ravi noticed a strange patch on the floor. Unlike the rest of the dusty concrete, this part seemed newer, as if someone had covered something years ago. He bent down and tapped it with the handle of his broom. The sound was hollow. Curious, Ravi fetched a small iron bar and pushed it against the spot. After some effort, a loose slab shifted slightly. Beneath it lay a dark space. A faint smell of damp earth rose up. Ravi's heart beat faster. He thought maybe it was a storage place. Carefully, he pulled the slab aside and revealed a narrow hole that led deeper underground. At first, he hesitated. He did not want to risk falling. But curiosity was strong. He fetched a small flashlight he found in a drawer upstairs and climbed down carefully. The passage led into a low underground room made of old stones. The air was cool and damp. At one side, water dripped slowly from a crack in the rock. Ravi touched the water with his hand. It was cold and clear. He filled an empty bottle and tasted it. The water was fresh and pure, unlike anything he had drunk before. His eyes widened. He realized this was no ordinary basement leak. It was a natural spring hidden under the house. When he climbed back up, Mira was waiting at the top, holding her toy. She asked, "Papa, what is down there?" Ravi lifted her into his arms. "It is a secret under our house. There is water coming from the ground." Mira clapped her hands. So we will never be thirsty again? Ravi laughed softly. Yes, my little one. We will always have water. That night he could not sleep. He kept thinking about the underground spring. In his village childhood, he had heard stories of people who owned land with natural water. Some became rich because farmers needed water for fields. Others sold it to towns when supplies ran dry. Ravi wondered if this hidden spring had value. Could it help him and Mira escape poverty, or was it just a small pool that would dry up in summer? He did not know, but he felt a new fire inside. For the first time, he believed the broken house might hold more than just shelter. The following days, Ravi returned to the underground space again and again. He noticed the water was not just a trickle. It was steady and strong. The rock walls were wet, and small streams joined into one pool before seeping deeper. He filled buckets and carried them upstairs to test. The water stayed clear even after hours. Soon word spread in the neighborhood. Some people passing by saw Ravi carrying buckets and asked questions. He kept his answers short, not wanting to reveal too much yet. He needed time to understand what he had found, but he could not hide it forever. One morning, Imran from the hardware store visited to deliver nails. When Ravi showed him the basement spring, Imran's eyes widened. Do you know what you have here? This could be valuable. Water is life, and land with water is treasure. Ravi's heart pounded. He had suspected, but hearing it from someone else made it real. He looked at Mira, who was busy drawing on the dusty wall with chalk. She turned and smiled at him, her innocent face glowing with happiness. Ravi thought, maybe our luck is changing. Maybe this broken house will give my daughter a better life. He still did not know how much the spring was worth or how to protect it, but deep inside, he knew one thing. The day he spent his last $15 for this house was the day destiny opened a hidden door for him, and soon many others would come knocking. Ravi stood in the yard of his little house, watching the morning sun spread across the weeds he had cut down the day before. The air smelled fresh after a light rain, and the roof dripped slowly. He had managed to patch one corner with old wood and nails, but he knew much more work was waiting. Still, the thought of the underground spring filled his heart with courage. Mira sat on the porch humming a tune as she brushed her toy with a stick she pretended was a comb. She looked happy, and her laughter mixed with the sound of birds. That small joy reminded Ravi of his promise. No matter what, he would build a better future for her. The secret beneath the house kept him restless. He returned to the basement every day, studying the way the water flowed from the cracks in the stone. It was not just a small pool. The stream was steady and strong. He carried bottles to the kitchen, and every time he drank, he was amazed at how clean it tasted. One evening, when Imran, the hardware store owner, visited again, he looked at the water more carefully. He crouched near the dripping rock and ran the water through his fingers. Ravi, he said slowly, I think this is not just luck. You may be sitting on an aquifer. That means the ground below has a natural water source that could be huge. Ravi frowned. But how do I know if it is big or small? Imran shook his head. You will need experts, people who can test it. But remember, once others know, they will try to claim it. Be careful. This is more than just water. This is wealth. Those words stayed in Ravi's mind like a seed. He lay awake that night listening to the soft breathing of Mira beside him. He thought of his past struggles, the cold nights in the car, the empty wallet, the hungry stomachs. Could this hidden spring be the end of their suffering? Or could it bring more troubles than before? The next morning, while he cleaned the yard, a man from the neighborhood stopped at the gate. His name was Aslam, a farmer whose land was not far away. He leaned on the fence and called, I hear your basement has water. Is that true? Ravi stiffened. Who told you that? The farmer shrugged. People talk. This town is small. Water is important for us farmers. My wells are running dry. If you have water, it could be valuable. Ravi forced a smile. It is just a small leak. Nothing important. But inside, he grew uneasy. The whisper had already left his walls and was spreading. He worried what would happen if powerful people learned the truth. That week, more strangers came. Some knocked on his door, offering money to buy the house. Some only stood at the street watching. Ravi refused them politely, but the attention made him nervous. He felt protective, like the spring was not just water, but part of his daughter's future. Meanwhile, life in the house was still difficult. The roof leaked in 2 more places. The bathroom pipe broke one night, flooding the floor. Ravi worked hard each day to repair, using whatever he could find. Mira never complained. She followed him with her cheerful smile, drawing pictures on the walls with chalk, or bringing him small stones she called treasures. One afternoon, while fixing the fence, Ravi met a woman named Fatima, who lived a few houses away. She brought him a basket of bread and said kindly, "I see you are working hard every day. The house is still broken, but it feels alive now. Everyone in town is talking about you and your daughter." Ravi thanked her warmly. The kindness of neighbors gave him strength, but he noticed her glance at the ground, as if she too had heard whispers of the hidden spring. That night, Ravi sat at the old wooden table with Imran. The older man spoke seriously. "Ravi, you must think about legal rights. If that water is truly an aquifer, the land may hold water rights worth millions. But unless you register and protect them, someone else may take them away. Land companies, farmers, even the town council may try." Ravi rubbed his forehead. "Millions? I never even dreamed of so much money. I only wanted a roof for my daughter. How can I fight people with power?" Imran placed a hand on his shoulder. "Do not think of fighting. Think of protecting. Go to the records office. Check if your deed mentions water rights. If it does, then the water is yours." The next day, Ravi carried Mira with him to town hall. He asked the clerk who had sold him the house for help. The clerk looked through dusty files, pulling out old documents. Finally, he handed Ravi a yellowed sheet with faded ink. "Here it is. The property was built over natural land. The water rights belong to whoever owns the house." Ravi's hands trembled as he held the paper. It was true. The spring was legally his. His heart pounded and he hugged Mira tightly. She laughed and asked why he looked so excited. He kissed her forehead and whispered, "Because our future is brighter than I thought." But the joy did not last long. News traveled quickly. A week later, a man in a suit arrived at his door. He introduced himself as Mr. Kamal, a representative of a large company. He smiled politely, but his eyes were sharp. "We are interested in your property," he said. "We will pay you $50,000 if you sell it now." Ravi almost dropped his breath. $50,000 was more money than he had ever seen. It could change his life. But a voice inside warned him. If they were willing to pay so much so quickly, then the water must be worth far more. He shook his head. "Thank you, sir, but this house is not for sale." The man's smile faded slightly. "Think carefully. Offers like this do not come often." After he left, Ravi sat in silence. His mind raced between hope and fear. He wanted a safe life for Mira, but he knew rushing would be dangerous. He needed time to understand, to find the right way. That evening, as he watched Mira chase fireflies in the yard, he promised himself he would not let greed or fear destroy what they had found. The spring was a gift, but it was also a test. He had to be wise. The whispers in town grew louder. Farmers asked questions. The council sent letters. More strangers came to the gate. Ravi stood firm, but deep inside he knew the storm was only beginning. And far below the broken house, the water continued to flow, steady and strong, carrying with it the weight of a fortune waiting to be claimed. The days that followed were not easy for Ravi. At first he had felt joy at learning the water rights belonged to him, but that joy quickly turned into worry. The whispers in town grew louder. Everyone seemed to know about the spring now. Some called it luck, others called it a miracle. But Ravi felt the weight of eyes watching him every time he walked through the market. Mira did not notice the tension. She spent her days running through the yard, making tiny houses out of stones and drawing pictures with chalk on the fence. Her laughter kept Ravi from falling into despair, but he could not ignore the letters that started arriving. One morning, while repairing a window frame, Ravi found an envelope pushed under the door. Inside was a formal notice from the town council. It said they wanted to meet him to discuss the water under his property. They wrote about shared resources and community benefit, but Ravi read the lines carefully and sensed something else. They wanted control. That evening, Imran came to visit. Ravi showed him the letter. Imran read it twice and shook his head. "They are trying to pressure you. They know the water is valuable. Do not sign anything without advice. Promise me this, Ravi." "I promise," Ravi said, though his voice was heavy. He had never dealt with councils, lawyers, or companies before. He was just a man who bought a broken house for $15 to shelter his child. Now he was standing in the middle of something much larger than himself. The next day he attended the council meeting. The hall was wide, with long wooden tables and chairs lined up neatly. Men and women from the council sat across from him, their papers stacked high. One of them, an older man named Mr. Ralph, leaned forward and said, "We understand you have discovered a spring under your property. Such a source of water is valuable for our entire community. We would like to manage it together." Ravi answered softly but firmly, "The deed says the water rights belong to me. I am willing to share water if people are thirsty, but I cannot give up my rights." The council members exchanged looks. Some frowned, some whispered to each other. Finally, Mr. Ralph said, "Think carefully, young man. It is not easy to protect such a resource alone. You will need money, knowledge, and security. Are you ready for such a responsibility?" Ravi left the hall with his heart pounding. The council had not forced him, but their words felt like a warning. He knew they would not give up easily. Back at home, Mira ran to him with a smile. She held a wildflower in her hand and said, "Papa, this is for you." He knelt and hugged her tightly. Her small gift reminded him why he had to stay strong. This fight was not only about water, it was about her future. That week, another visitor arrived. It was Mr. Kamal again, the man in the suit who had already offered $50,000 for the property. This time, his tone was sharper. He walked through the yard as if he already owned it and said, "My company is ready to increase our offer. 100,000 cash. You will never have to work again. Think of your daughter. She could have the best education, the best life." Ravi stood in front of him, blocking his path. "This house and the land beneath it are not for sale." Mr. Kamal's smile disappeared. His eyes grew cold. "Be wise, Ravi. Refusing such an offer can be dangerous. People do not forgive carelessness when so much money is involved." Those words chilled Ravi, but he did not show fear. He simply repeated, "This is my land. Please leave." After the man left, Ravi felt a storm rising inside him. He knew now that he was not only facing neighbors or farmers, but companies with money and power. He had to act fast. He went back to Imran and asked for guidance. Imran said, "You must protect your rights legally. Register the spring under your name at the water authority. That way, no company or council can take it without your consent." The next day, Ravi traveled to the nearest city with the old documents in his hand. He stood in long lines, spoke to clerks, and filled forms he barely understood. At last, a young officer confirmed, "Your property deed includes water rights. We will record it officially. From now, the water belongs to you." Relief washed over him. It was a small victory, but an important one. Yet he knew the challenges were not over. Back at the house, work never stopped. The roof leaked again after a heavy rain, and the basement flooded slightly. Ravi used buckets to clear it. While doing so, he noticed the flow of water had increased. The steady stream was stronger now, almost as if the ground was waking up after years of silence. He filled a jar and showed it to a neighbor who tasted it and said, "This water is cleaner than any well in town. People will come for it," and they did. Soon, villagers began to knock at his door with empty containers asking if they could take some. Ravi never refused. He let them fill their pots. Mira would stand beside him proudly, handing out cups of water to children. The kindness won him friends, but it also drew more attention. Local newspapers wrote about the 15 house with $1 million secret. The article brought visitors from other towns. Cars stopped at his gate daily. Some offered to buy the house. Others simply wanted to see the miracle water. Ravi's life changed quickly. Where once he had been invisible, now every eye was on him. He felt both proud and afraid. He wanted to protect the spring, but he feared greed from outsiders. One evening, while Mira slept, Ravi sat outside under the stars. Imran joined him, bringing tea. They spoke in low voices. Imran said, "Ravi, water is wealth, but it is also responsibility. If you are not careful, you will lose it to those with money and power. But if you stay strong, this spring can give your daughter the future you dreamed of." Ravi nodded slowly. "I did not buy this house for money. I bought it for a home. But now I see that the spring is a gift. I must protect it not just for myself, but for everyone who needs it." He looked at the sleeping house behind him, with its broken roof and peeling paint. It was still fragile, still far from perfect. But under its foundation flowed a treasure greater than gold. A treasure that could feed fields, fill wells, and change lives. As the night deepened, Ravi felt the weight of destiny on his shoulders. He was no longer just a homeless man who bought a broken house for $15. He was the guardian of water, and soon the real battle for control would begin. The morning sun lit up the small broken house as Ravi stepped into the yard with a bucket of water drawn from the spring below. He poured it into a pot where Mira had planted tiny seeds she collected from the roadside. She watched with shining eyes and said, "Papa, these seeds will grow strong because our water is magic." Her innocent words gave Ravi strength. The spring had already changed their lives. No longer were they invisible, sleeping in a car. They had a home, even if it was old and broken. They had hope, and more than that, they had a treasure flowing beneath their feet. But hope alone was not enough. Pressure was building around him every day. Visitors continued to arrive. Some came with smiles, others with sharp eyes. Some carried papers, others carried money. Every single one wanted a share of the spring. Ravi refused them all, but with every refusal, he felt the danger grow. One afternoon, Mr. Kamal returned again. This time, he did not bother with sweet words. He placed a thick envelope on the table. 200,000, he said. Take it and leave this place. You will never have to worry again. Ravi looked at the envelope but did not touch it. He thought of Mira sleeping on cold car seats in the past. He thought of nights when he had nothing to feed her. The money tempted him, but when he imagined selling the land, his heart grew heavy. If he sold it, he would be giving away not just water, but his daughter's future. He pushed the envelope back. This land is not for sale. Kamal's expression turned hard. You are making a mistake, Ravi. When bigger players come, you will not be able to protect it. Think wisely. After he left, Ravi sat in silence. Fear pressed on his chest, but he reminded himself of the paper from the water authority. The spring was legally his. He had to believe that law and truth would protect him. Still, he knew he could not face this alone. He needed allies. That evening, he walked to the mosque courtyard where many townspeople gathered. He stood before them and spoke from his heart. Brothers and sisters, I am just a man who bought a broken house for $15. I found water beneath it. Some want me to sell, but I will not. This spring does not belong only to me. I will share it with you, with farmers who need it, with families who thirst. But I ask for your support. Together we can protect it from those who want to steal it. The crowd listened quietly. Then one old farmer stood and said, We have watched this man. He shares freely. He asks nothing. He is honest. We should stand with him. Others agreed. Soon Ravi found himself surrounded by neighbors offering help. Some promised to guard his gate. Others promised to stand by him if the council or companies tried to pressure him. The unity warmed his heart. For the first time, he did not feel alone. In the weeks that followed, the spring became a blessing for the entire town. Farmers brought barrels and filled them. Families came with pots. Ravi never charged anyone. People began to call it Mira's water, after the little girl who always greeted visitors with a smile. The council could no longer ignore this. They sent representatives again, but this time they saw how strongly the town supported Ravi. Instead of threats, they offered cooperation. They proposed building proper pipes to distribute the water fairly, with Ravi as the legal owner. For the first time, the council spoke with respect. Meanwhile, word spread beyond the town. Journalists arrived. They wrote articles about the homeless father who found a fortune under his broken house. News traveled to cities, then across the country. Donations poured in from people touched by his story. Some sent money, others sent tools, and one charity group sent builders to repair the roof and walls. The house slowly transformed. The broken fence was rebuilt. The roof stopped leaking. The windows were replaced with clear glass. The living room gained new paint and the fireplace was cleaned. It was still small, but it looked alive and safe. One afternoon, Mira ran through the newly painted rooms, her laughter echoing. She stopped in the kitchen and shouted, "Papa, our house looks new now." Ravi knelt and hugged her. "Yes, Mira, it is not just a house anymore. It is our home." Soon after, a government officer visited to speak with Ravi. He explained that the spring was tested and found to be one of the cleanest water sources in the region. "This water can serve thousands of people," he said. "We want to build a system with your approval. You will remain the owner, but we will pay you royalties for the use of the water." Ravi listened carefully. For the first time, he saw a future where the spring could provide not just survival, but lasting security. With proper agreements, the water could help the town and also give him enough income to educate Mira, to build a strong future. He signed the partnership after reading every word twice. This time he was not tricked. This time he held the power. Months passed and the change was clear. Pipes carried water from under his land to farms and homes. The town flourished again. Fields grew green, wells filled, and children drank without fear of shortage. Every month Ravi received his fair share, enough to live with dignity, but more than money he received respect. The same man who once slept in a car with his daughter was now honored by the town. People called him the guardian of the spring. Some even traveled from far places to meet him, to thank him, to learn from his courage. Through it all, Ravi remained humble. He still woke early, still worked with his hands, still cared for his daughter with the same love. When Mira asked why people admired him, he said, "Because we never gave up. Because we chose to share instead of sell." One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in orange and pink, Ravi sat on the porch with Mira. She rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, "Papa, are we rich now?" Ravi smiled gently. "Richness is not only about money, Mira. We are rich because we have a home, because we have water, because we have each other. That is more than millions." She closed her eyes, smiling in peace. Ravi looked at the house, at the land, at the life they had built. He thought of the $15 he had spent that day at town hall, the last money he had in his pocket. That single choice had opened the door to a new destiny. And now, with the spring flowing steady and strong, with the town standing by him, with his daughter safe in his arms, Ravi knew one thing with certainty. The house that once seemed broken beyond repair had given him not just shelter, but a future worth more than all the riches in the world.